There has been a lot of chaos in college football this season, causing championship caliber teams to get left out. Just look at Florida State. They're going to be missing the college football playoff this year because they have a handicapped quarterback. Regardless of going 13-0, the committee still gives them no respect, and honestly, I don't blame them. And so much for 3P'ing. Former number 1 and undefeated Georgia is back to doing what they do best, choking to a SEC rival and missing the national championship game. And don't even get me started on Ryan Day. Ohio State and their struggling coach have been getting pounded by Michigan for the last 3 years, like it's an adult film. Is Texas really back, or are they still frauds? Can Nick Saban and Jalen Milroe bring Alabama back to the top, or will the tide fall to Michigan? And what about Washington? Can Washington and star quarterback hang with the SEC in the Big Ten? The real question is the stage too big for Michigan? Can Jim Harbaugh's ugly ass actually bring a championship to Ann Arbor? Are the Wolverines even as good as what everyone thinks they are? Well, this is what I think. Only one team can be labeled champion. Only one team will be victorious. And this is my prediction. Now, I understand that there was many teams that could have gotten into the playoffs, but honestly, I feel like they got it right. At the end of the day, somebody was going to get left out, and they had to make a tough decision. But it got me wondering, what if Florida State got in? What if Jordan Travis never got injured? And what would the outcome be if Florida State made it into the playoffs? Well, the same shit that happened last night to Georgia. I've been saying that FSU would be the TCU of the playoff, and last night they proved me right. And did y'all not see the score to the game last night? That shit was damn near identical to the Georgia versus TCU game last year. Florida State, how you just gonna let Georgia bend you over and take your cheeks like that on live television? You ain't even try to fight back. And I just know that people in the comments are gonna say it would have been different if Jordan Travis was there. Man, fuck that. I don't care who was starting. It would have been the same result. Now Georgia, you didn't have to do Florida State like that. I understand that the committee made you mad, but you didn't have to give Florida State the TCU treatment just to prove a point. I do still think that Georgia will be a powerhouse in the future, but do y'all think the last 2 years was a fluke, or will the Bulldogs bounce back in 2024? Regardless, we have our Final Four, and any of the teams in the playoffs can win it. Now, the Washington versus Texas game is interesting. Washington had a great year, they controlled the Pac-12, and their quarterback should have won the Heisman. They beat an Oregon team that was capable of being in the Final Four, and they beat them not only once, but twice. So they showed they are for real, but have they been challenged enough? Now, Texas, on the other hand, did defeat Alabama, but they suffered the loss to Oklahoma. Now, Texas really only snuck in because Alabama got in. If Georgia didn't do their best Mia Khalifa impression and choked Bama, Texas would be playing in another meaningless bowl game, just like they do every year. But since Texas did beat Alabama in the beginning of the year, we can't just write off Texas just yet. But can Texas beat Washington? Truth is, Texas shouldn't beat Washington. And for those that think that Texas should win, you haven't watched a Washington game all season. Yeah, of course, Washington has no fucking defense, but their offense is scary, and Penix has been dominating all season. So that's why this is a tough situation for Texas, because their defense is ass too. So the winner's going to be dictated by whoever can score the most, or whose defense finally decides to drop their nuts and get a stop or two. And honestly, I got Washington moving on to the title game, unless the refs cheat for Texas, of course. As for the Michigan versus Alabama game, I don't know which situation I hate more. Alabama and Grandpa winning another championship, or seeing Harbaugh's ugly, pathetic, and cheating ass win a title. All jokes, I respect what Michigan has done. They have great discipline, they don't make mistakes, and they have the talent to compete with anyone in the playoff. The only way you can beat Michigan is if you don't make mistakes, and that's what Alabama does consistently. So it's not looking good for Bama, although you can't sleep on Nick Saban. Jalen Milroe and Alabama grew up these last few weeks, which has me thinking, is it enough to overcome the Wolverines? Or will they just get punished by JJ McCarthy, Blake Corum, and the Michigan running game? But it's still fuck Harbaugh. I just don't like his face. But as for my prediction, I do have Alabama beating Michigan and moving on to the title game and facing Washington. But if we're being real, Michigan should win that game. Michigan is by far the better team. I just feel like they haven't been tested like Alabama has been tested, especially because Michigan has a weak schedule and the only team they really face is Ohio State and a weak-ass Penn State team that can't get over the hump of Ohio State and Michigan. So if Alabama punches Michigan in the mouth, I just don't see them responding. So for the national championship game, I have Alabama versus Washington. It's not the championship game everyone was looking for, but I honestly believe it'll be a good one. Most people wanted to see Alabama versus Texas, which would be a rematch game from not only this season, but a rematch from the 2009 National Championship game, which Alabama dominated. But I'm not sure if that rematch was to happen, things would be the same. As for the National Championship, I just don't see Washington hanging with Alabama. The only way Washington wins is if Alabama makes mistakes, which is possible. It's not like Alabama has Tua, or Jalen Hurts, or even Bryce Young. They have Jalen Milroe. I'm not trying to say that he's trash, but he's not one of the top quarterbacks in the country. He's just good enough that Alabama is able to manage. I still have Alabama winning by about 9 or 10 points, because I do believe that Penix will keep Washington in the game and possibly get close to making a comeback, but I just don't feel like Washington has enough to keep up with this Alabama team. Hopefully my prediction is wrong and we get to see the Alabama versus Texas matchup we all want to see. Regardless how this plays out, this year has been a very unpredictable yet entertaining season. And for the first time in forever, any team in the top 10 could have really played for the national championship game. Now my question for you is, who do you believe will win the title? What is your prediction? Go ahead and leave a comment below so I can see which teams you have winning the title. I just want to say I appreciate everyone who stayed to the end of the video. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe and join the family. Hit the notification bell so you can get alerted on my next upcoming videos. And until next time.